Hi, my name is Connor Mead, and I'm here today at the 2016 Canadian Science Policy Conference. And joining me today is Dr. Aubie Angel, Professor Emeritus at the University of Manitoba, and a president and founding member of the Friends of Canadian Institutes of Health Research. So, Dr. Angel, thank you so much for joining me.
Connor, it's delighted to be here.
Glad to have you. So, to start off, I wonder if you can tell us a bit about some of the groundbreaking research you've done on the linkages between obesity and cholesterol, and perhaps answer the age-old question of whether or not eggs are in fact good for us.
I'll start with the last part. Eggs are a healthy food. Everything in moderation, of course. It's not a risk factor in heart disease. And so the whole early story about eggs being dangerous, I think, has been debunked. Eggs are a natural food and shouldn't be discouraged. My early research, that's quite a while ago, had to do with the role of nutrition in obesity, size of fat tissue in the body, and the risk factors associated with obesity. And I studied the role of dietary fat in body cholesterol metabolism and blood cholesterol levels, typically in small animal studies using animal rodents. And our work continued, and we demonstrated early on that the size of the whole cholesterol pool in the body is directly related to the size of your fat organ or your degree of obesity. So that was the major observation. And then following that, we studied the role of polyunsaturated fats, particularly marine fats and marine oils, on fat tissue growth and development, and showed that diets rich in polyunsaturated fat, in fact, prevented obesity in small animals. That was a while ago.
Well, you seem to remember it perfectly. So jumping off of that, there's been so much controversy around the role of dietary fat in obesity in humans, and we seem to have struggled quite a bit to reach and communicate answers on that question. So do you think that's a failure of the scientific process, a failure of scientific communication, or was it just a fundamentally difficult question to reach that we've only recently reached the answer to?
Well, the point of it is that science is a evolving process. New information comes forward, new ideas come forward, new concepts are developed and tested in larger and larger groups. And when you do small animal studies and over-project, you get certain interpretations. When you actually study them in humans, individuals or small groups or large populations, you get better answers. So trials, clinical trials, randomized clinical trials, and population studies give you definitive answers. And the importance of fat in the diet can't be underestimated, but it shouldn't be overestimated. So a balanced diet with a normal fat content is good. Saturated fats, particularly trans fats, are not healthy because of coronary disease. And diets that contain the proper ratio of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids is good for you. The operative principle is that excess fats that often we find in prepared or fast foods in excess are usually additional to a normal diet, and that has to be carefully monitored and managed.
So I wonder, could you tell us a little bit more about Friends of CIHR?
Yes. Friends of CIHR is now in its 16th year. It began in the year 2000, coincidence with the creation of the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. In 2000, the Medical Research Council of Canada transformed into the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, and our organization at that time was called Alumni and Friends of MRC, and we changed to Friends of Canadian Institutes of Health Research. Our mission was well defined. We were created to further and support the goals and ideals of CIHR, which was to advance research at the best possible level at an international standard. We were created to help support the exchange of knowledge and information to society and participate in active engagement with groups in society, and finally, and most importantly, to encourage the development, funding and support of young scientists in their careers. And we've now been in existence, and over time we've added new initiatives, and the most significant and relevant one today is the Henry G. Friesen International Prize in Health Research and Leadership. Henry Friesen was the leader of MRC at the time and was responsible for the creation of CIHR. And he was honored with establishing this prize in his name. And this year we are awarding the 11th Henry G. Friesen International Prize to a famous Canadian scientist and developmental biologist. Her name is Dr. Janet Rossant. She's presently the president of the Gairdner Foundation, and prior to this she was scientific director of the Hospital for Sick Children Research Institute. And she was instrumental in stem cell science and regenerative medicine and the ethical issues related to stem cell research and clinical application. Well, she's been here now for the second day, and she's been talking about these topics to a variety of people and gave a major lecture yesterday at the University of Ottawa. This morning she spoke at OHRI, that's the Ottawa Health Research Institute, on regenerative medicine, and at 1 o'clock today she'll participate in another roundtable discussion, which is a policy discussion on the importance of early career scientists in health policy development. I've had the wonderful personal experience and responsibility of having founded the Friends of CIHR and established and chaired the Henry G. Friesen International Prize program.
Fantastic. The most important challenges in terms of promoting young researchers, and what can we do to overcome those challenges?
Well, the biggest challenge, of course, is the system that's currently in place tends to be top-down, whether it's from governments or organizations or universities. There is a leadership class of older folks like myself who have graduated through the ranks and more or less dominated major administrative positions and forgotten about the importance of the creative mind, which is in the younger faculty members, the newly identified and recruited assistant professors who work very, very hard, but they're rarely encouraged to participate and add their creative genius to the policy levels. Policy tends to come from top down, and really it should be a balance, bottom up too, because that's where the future is. The young people coming into the system carry with them the future. They think differently, they have a different notion of what's important, they have different priorities. I think that has to be part of the process.
Okay. Well, what do you think we can do to empower young researchers and young policymakers to give them that engagement and empowerment?
Well, I don't think that all young researchers or young scientists are equipped or interested in administration. They're interested in science, they're interested in their research, they're interested in teaching, and that's what they like to do. But some are leaders, and leadership develops spontaneously or it's encouraged, and these people will enjoy that role and participate at the senior level, and it's our responsibility to give them opportunities to help identify these younger people who are interested in leadership and management and policy, and bring them on board, not as a token, but actually have them actively participate in policy discussion, not just have them members of committees that are labor intensive, but actually thinking committees that have to do with policy, with respect to education, with respect to funding, with respect to equity, with respect to personal development, recruitment. There's some examples.
Absolutely, yeah. So my last question, for any young researchers watching at home with an appetite for leadership, where would you recommend we go to learn more about your work and learn more about how we can get involved?
Well, I think that in their own institution, they should identify, if they can, mentors, individual faculty members who are sensitive to their needs and interests. And in many institutions across the country, there are leadership programs already established and defined. They should find out about them. I mean, it's important that the institutions themselves promote this, let students know about it, but they should also think about having leadership opportunities for young people, and this is a growth area that's happening in many centers across the country, so I think that there's hope in the future. And also the students or junior faculty themselves are active because they've just created a new society of young investigators to further their interests.
Fantastic. Well, Dr. Angel, thank you so much for joining me.
Rhonda,
It's been
thank
an
you for
absolute
having
pleasure.
me.
It's
Yeah.
been a great
Nice
conversation.
meeting you. Yeah.
Nice meeting you as well.